He will be. I want to thank everyone for coming out.
We have to help him with the
As you know, we are in the midst of Black History Month or African American History Month. For those who don't know, my name is Charles Trott. I'm a visual artist, arts educator, and the founder of DIA. DIA is an acronym for Diasporic Images of Africa. What is that? DIA identifies, includes, and redeems the position of Africa as the premier civilization and culture bringer to the world. Some of you may think that's a rather bold statement. Take it up with the historians. Okay? What historians am I talking about? Well, I'll give you a few. The grand old man, W.E.B. Du Bois. You could talk about some more contemporaries, but let's go with someone contemporary to him. Arturo Schomburg, who is more of a bibliophile, but and a historian as well. Then we have the other generation, Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. John Henry Clark, and Dr. Ben Johakkinen. And there are others. I'm leaving people out, okay? And they don't. And by the way, let me say this. How many races are there? One race, right? That's not what your birth certificate says. I know some of y'all don't have that one race on it. It don't say nothing about no human. And that's a shame. And see, that brings about a lot of the confusion we are in today, and have been. And one of the reasons that I have chosen to do this month is not because I'm a historian, but because I was tired of seeing students, I'm a former teacher, as I told you. Maria, go around, go around. Tired of students not knowing much about their own history or culture, okay? I took the same attitude that Carter G. Woodson took. He started the first Cultural History Month. Black History Month. It's about 100 years old now, okay? But there were other ethnic groups and even genders, because women, well, they're freaking pregnant. Y'all don't need to own nothing, you got a husband. What? Are you crazy? I'm surprised that women didn't rebel long before they did. But at any rate, they deserve a month. And next month, by the way, is Women's History Month. That's 2 of the 6 classic history months that I do. The third one would be Asian Pacific Islander History Month in May. In June, Black Music Month or African American Music Appreciation Month. September and October, Latino, some say Hispanic. And November, the last and the 6th, would be Native American History Month. I like to say indigenous. Why? Because indigenous is a better description of the people we're talking about. Natives, you can move somewhere, and within less than 30 days, you're a native New Yorker. You're a native Asbury. But we're talking about people who've been here not only centuries, but for millennia. And all of them aren't like the ones you saw in the movie. Some of them look like that brother right there. Some of them look like me. Some of them look like him. So, you know, you do. No, wait a minute. Yes. But we have been lied to so much. And so I felt that since I'm retired, and since I've always touched on cultural history through art, then why not get serious and really start to learn more? So I use the arts to tell our story through the history months. I want to show you a brief video of our show. By the way, this display, this exhibit, is about the return of the diaspora. I'll explain that later, but the two sheets you should have, the black and white, if you look at the bottom of it, you'll see 2016. And you'll also see that that title page says the diaspora. Okay, so that's why I'm talking about the return of the diaspora. 2016, I was in the exhibit in the same place, Casa de Africa, for the first time. This time is the second time, and my return, certainly the brother who organized it, it's his 100th return. He's been going there for so long. But anyway, let's get to it.
Contemporary Cuban artist from all time. His name is Roberto Favelo, and he put this piece for the biennial of 2004. However, before we get into this, let me tell you a little bit about the history of the collection of the museum, because this collection started to be formed since 1913 by a group of intellectuals, a group of artists and architects that decided that it was about time that Cuba has its own space where it could save everything that was being important to us, culturally speaking. It was very early on in 1913 to talk about an idea of identity, to talk about an idea of nation, but
See some of the other artists as they're working. This is always a bit of an ordeal because you have to look at the size of the works and figure out where and how you're going to place them. So we're going to look around. Now, I forgot to show you, I don't know if you can see them over there, but you'll see them in a minute. Those children are part of a class, a school that takes place here in Casa de Africa. And they come 5 days a week. I'm not sure what grade it is, but they are elementary school students. All right, my work is finally up, and these two brothers, Cuban brothers, worked for Casa de Africa, have installed it. Muchas gracias. This is Brother Mansa Musa. Tell us about this piece.
Peace and blessing. Mansa Musa here, La Habana de Cuba. I think this is trip number 10, here with my compatriot, Maria Luis Herrera. And this piece is called Cross-Cultural Connection. So we collaborated on this piece. The 12 panels, I started half and gave them to Maria. She started half and gave them to
Maria, you want to tell us?
This is my first time in Havana, Cuba, in the 15 Havana Biennale. I'm very excited to collaborate with Muata and bring this mixed media collage. It talks a lot about my roots, my Cape Verdean roots, African roots.
All right, now we are entering Murleando. Man, you don't know what I went through to get in here. I want you to take a little look. More will be seen later. Our good brother down there, the professor, has been the guide.
We cleaned up all this and made this solid. Okay? There is solid over here when you stand it, is hollow in it. But don't worry, you're not going to fall in. The sleeve is this big. Okay? Down there we have a big warehouse where we keep all our construction materials, tools, etc. We have people from the neighborhood come here every single morning, over 60, okay, to practice Tai Chi. Oh, man. Yes. We have birthdays for the children here, for little children. That's why it's so hot. Okay, for children, birthdays for the children of the neighborhood. Sometimes out there, 3 people live in a big house, sometimes 7 in a small house. So they play for birthday. And up there, quinceañeras, birthdays and weddings. Up there, for the neighborhood. Do you feel the discipline in the neighborhood? Yes. They know we're working. That's right. Okay. They know we work for them.
This is Sister Amira, another American artist, here waiting to get her work installed. She's a photographer among her many talents, and we will catch her a little bit later.
Sugar in the blood has a different meaning in the smile of a brown coated face as the tongue remembers how it got its color from blood. Cuban smiles teeter from the promise to prayer of Pacharia.
My name is Arturo Lindsay. I'm a Panama-born, Brooklyn-raised, and Atlanta-Portobello-based artist, cultural investigator, and educator. The story that I'm going to tell you is about a boy and a promise. That boy was me. And the promise is the promise that I made to my hometown of Colón, Panama. I love Colón. But my parents had decided that they wanted to move to a larger country in order to provide their children with greater educational opportunities. The country they chose was the United States, and the city was New York City.
Okay, this is Brother Orlando's work, talking to some of the Cuban artists, students, workers about his work. We'll get it in English another time. But he's a magician amongst other things.
Musa Hickson. I'm a sculptor and installation artist. here at the Havana Biennial. This time I'm actually showing some of my painting work, but it's still three-dimensional. This is a piece that I have here we're going to hang soon called Bone Script. In Bone Script, I'm dealing with some what I call soul writing or automatic writing. So it does look like a form of script, but I can't tell you what form of script it is. Maybe it's some language being channeled through me. I do know that some of the images, kind of like Brug Rabbit image or Iron Nancy the Spider images, kind of pop into.
All right, here's another brother in here. He's going to introduce himself and talk about his work.
Yes, Curtis Grayson from Curtis Grayson III, Curtis Grayson Fine Art on Instagram, and curtisgrayson.com, fineart.com. This is my piece. Happy to be a part of as far as Casa de Africa, as far as from here. This is the piece which is actually showing as far as the heartbeat and pulse of Cuba. Mixed media collage, acrylic, large piece that we're working on. We're doing a limited edition piece. It's gonna
This sculpture is being constructed by an artist from Germany. Excuse me, brother, what's your name again?
Martin Steiner.
Martin Steiner. He's an artist out of Germany. He's working alone today. Sometimes he works with assistants, but not today. But you know what? Let me start with Brother Ben. Ben, you with us? Would you unmute? Mm-hmm. Yes, he may be. Orlando, you can. Oh, that's how he's doing everything.
Hi, buddy. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Ben, because, Orlando, excuse me. Can we let Ben go first? Only because he has an engagement that's soon speaking.
Good. No problem.
Go ahead, Ben.
You want me to talk or?
Yes, no, I want you to talk about organizing your trip, about a little bit about your work, you know, and how it fits into the African diaspora, that type of thing.
Right. Okay. Well, this was a trip that we took about 26 artists to Cuba because I've been to Cuba about 109 times. I can't get enough of the place because the culture is so rich and Americans have such a distorted view of Cuba because all you hear is communism this and communism that. But the country is more than communism. and has such a rich culture. And the African presence is very strong in Cuba because they still practice African religions. Here we call it Santeria, but they call it Yoruba, and they call it other names. But anyway, the culture is very rich, and the Havana Biennial is one of the most prestigious and international. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
With somebody.
We can hear you.
Yeah, it looks
This
like
connection.
it looked like it disconnected.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Well, he's gonna have to come back. Until Ben comes back because of the time situation. Orlando, can you hear me?
I can.
Please,
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Orlando.
tell our guests your interpretation of the exhibit, your feelings about how it fits into the African diaspora, and who you are.
Okay, well, my name is Orlando Cuevas. I'm a visual artist. I'm one of Ben Jones' former students. I'm a retired school teacher, and I'm a practicing visual artist. I had the honor, pleasure of being with this amazing crew of artists who went to Cuba. I see Tony there, beautiful Tony, and Amanta, thank you, and Ben, thank you, and all the other artists, thank you. But for me, it was an amazing experience, and that I got to share a little bit of how I process things in a different culture, in a different space, and it's taken me some 3 months to process even what I felt during this trip, and I'm sure it'll keep evolving. But for me, my work was part of that classroom that you mentioned earlier that's part of the institution. So it was really interesting. And by the way, those kids were 4th graders, if you're wondering what grade they were. So they were all like 9 and 10 years old. And they were just marvelous, and they were great the way they engaged with my work. Just to quickly tell you what, I think Ben is back, and if he's got to talk, I'll pause. So, Ben, do you want to go?
No, you can talk and I'll come in later because you have to be somewhere.
No, I don't. I'm good. I can hang.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because you're dealing with a person that's completely horrible with technology. So excuse me, somebody was calling me and I hit the wrong button. But anyway, as I was saying, the culture in Cuba is so rich, and it's a country in comparison to us that has practically nothing. But I've never seen New York put on a art biennial as Cuba does. They invite artists from all over the world, top grade artists. And I think a lot of times people think a country is poor, so therefore they can't do things on a grand scale. But what I've learned from Cuba is what a country values, that's what they'll do greatly. And this is what this biennial is. And this was the 15th Havana Biennial. And as I said, you have artists from all over the world, plus Cuban artists from all over the country exhibiting. And maybe you have 150, 200 shows going on. If you're lucky, if you can get to 10% of it, because there's too many shows and they're so fabulous and stuff like that. But anyway, I wanted this to be an experience for the artists that we brought there to experience the other Cuba, as opposed to the Cuba that this country tells you about. So I think Orlando can take off from that and talk about his experience. And he was such a major hit at the biennial, and the television, the newspapers, the journalists did a lot of interviews with him. And he's like one of the stars from the biennial. Orlando?
Thank you, Ben. Orlando.
Wow, okay.
We can take a couple of minutes, then we're gonna move. Go
And
ahead.
real quick, the essence of my work was about human resilience. And my installation went up a week after they just had 2 hurricanes and 4 days without power on the entire island. And these people never quit. They're always picking themselves up by their own bootstraps, and they're always going to the next step. So I stood there and I learned and I processed how they stayed joyful and creative and positive in the midst of all that. I would say as an American, I was like whining like I missed my things from home. And they just continued. And I have to say my respect for them. And so my installation was where people were invited to build card castles. And if you've ever built card castles as a kid, you know, you build it, they collapse, they fall down, and then you do it again. And so this whole process of being in a classroom and one helping each other, and everyone engaged with building those card castles. And for me, it was like this story that I wrote about, we dust ourselves off, and yet I came home recognizing my government was different, and now I'm dusting myself off. So, you know, it's a thing we're all going to go through, and for me, the Cuban people were spectacular. Being in the show was an honor, and I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'll be posting a lot of pictures on my Instagram, so feel free to look if you want to see some stuff from Cuba.
All right, thank you, Brother Orlando. Musa or Hassan, Hassan, are you there?
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I am here.
Thank you, brother. Your turn.
So the experience of coming to Cuba was just very much as if I was going to Nigeria. I mean, the hurricane and the loss of the electricity is all stuff that I'm really used to because I grew up in a country, the largest, the most populous black country in the world that doesn't very often have electricity. And I know that one of the key reasons why it doesn't have electricity is that there is a conspiracy to ensuring that it stays in the dark, because if Nigeria were ever to have electricity and industrialize, oh my God, the hopes, the aspirations of Festac would be delivered in 1 year. So it's all a conspiracy, and it's all the Western hegemony conspiracies that my work is centered around. That's my philosophy. That's the base of my thematic engagement with the work I make. So I showed I'm showing three artworks in the biennial. The first one is a film titled A Dance of Wealth and Strife. It's produced in English, but it's subtitled in Spanish. And it's looking at the dire events of the global financial conspiracy of debt, the enslavement of the global South through the machinations of the IMF through debt. The events that drive my work are not dissimilar from the events of Cuba's recent history, particularly with the embargoes. And yeah, so I was really at home with showing my work in Cuba. It was really a wonderful experience to show with among such a contingent of very esteemed artists from the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Hassan. And it's funny you said the global South, because that is a new term for an old term they used to say back in the 60s and 70s, the third world. Some of you are old enough to remember that. But let me move on now. I don't want to start talking. Brother Musa, you there?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Please.
Good. Hello, my name is Musa Hickson. I am a sculptor and installation artist. I guess my direction or genre is mostly conceptual. I first of all want to thank all the organizers, of course, Ben Jones, who I've traveled there with at least 4 times. Maybe I went there by myself 1 time. And Mansa and Tony, hello. Thank you for organizing this fantastic event with all these also esteemed artists. Charles, thank you for organizing this today. You know, this is a great honor to share with you.
You're welcome, man. Glad to have you.
Yeah. Cuba has always been an interest to me because just like many of the Caribbean countries, South America, countries in Asia or Africa that have been colonized, they have a history of colonization that's similar to our history as African Americans. You know, and one thing that is unique about them is they have been champions in liberation for all people that want to free themselves from colonialism in the world. You know, and you know, just the things that they've been through and how it shares in our history is something that's always drawn me there. And they're so rich with culture because of these experiences and combination of cultures when you go there that it just draws us back again and again. I've actually organized, I was involved in the 2009, I believe it was, no, 2012. I was there for 2009. 2012, Havana Biennial. I also curated an exhibition at that time on African American artists. And, you know, constantly making that connection and being able to see these different places in the world that we share so much of a common history, you know, so much of the same people, you know. The work that I exhibited this time actually has two names, either Bone Script or You Call It, you know. In my work, I'm not always directly connecting with a specific culture, specific time or genre, but my love for history, for geology, you know, anthropology, and archaeology, I feel like I'm comfortable with blending it up in my head and letting it all come up like a big, I think the Caribbean people might say mashup, you know, a big mashup in sculpture or painting or whatever, you know, dimension of work that I'm working on at the time. And in that particular piece, in Bone Script, there are a couple of recognizable images that are not fully abstracted. And one of them is Bruh Rabbit. Bruh Rabbit is from an African American, how would you call it?
Folk tale.
What do you say?
Folk tale or...
Yeah, folklore, African American folklore, folk tale, you know, and it's kind of an individual who everybody underestimates, but he finds a way to come out on top, not through strength, not through bullying, but through coercion, through his intelligence, and often kind of a little bit of humor that's almost sad because he has to use that humor to get by. You know, so a person who perseveres and a person who has to be conscious that their wits and their intelligence is what's going to make them persevere, not necessarily their brawn.
You got about 30
another
seconds,
figure that comes across in that image is Nancy the Spider, coming from West African folklore. And a Nancy similar is one who is constantly coming out on top, you know, kind of having to use alternative methods, but always a high level of intelligence to beat odds that seem to be bigger than them, you know. And both of those figures kind of constantly become a reminder for me or for my culture, you know, how we have to be mindful. And even though things may seem overwhelming, we've endured so much in the past, and we have to very intelligently negotiate our way forward.
All right. Brother Musa, sorry to cut you off, but I got to stay on the schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But stay with us because I'm sure there may be some questions. As a matter of fact, if there's any questions, let me just entertain one, and then I want to introduce the artists that are here in the flesh. Anyone have a question? You willing to wait? No questions? I want you to fall asleep. All right. We're going to have ladies first. Maria, and then Tony, and then Brother William. Oh, pardon me, okay, go ahead, y'all do what you want to do.
So my name is Maria Estrella. I'm a collage mixed media artist. I was part of the 15 Havana Biennale, and it was my first time in Cuba. And Cuba has been in my bucket list for years, and going there was just a dream. Not only to be part of the culture, but also be part of such an amazing art expo, Biennale, with so many international artists. So I was collaborating with Massa Musa. He's another artist who was part of that. We had he has 2 pieces here, I have 2 pieces there, you can check it out. So we did 24 pieces, and it talks about the cross-culture connection. I talk a lot about my African roots. My family's from Cape Verde, which has a long relationship with Cuba too. So it was, for me, was trying to learn a little bit more about the Cape Verdean culture and the Cuban relationship. So I kind of connect both of the countries. And I mean, the experience was just amazing. The culture, the food, the arts, it's nothing compared. Like what I experienced there is really, the people itself is just beautiful. They're very human. I made a lot of friends, artist friends. We connect. We're still having conversations about art. So I'm very grateful to be there.
And you know, it's interesting that I ran into, I must say for me, because last year, some of you may remember, for Black History, we did quilombos, palenques, and maroons. Of course, I'm talking about the Brazilian slave settlements, the runaways. The palenques were the Spanish-speaking. Brazil would be Portuguese. And then maroons, well, that's English, okay? She's, what's your ethnic distinction again?
Cape Verde.
Cape Verde, which was once a Portuguese
colony. Yes.
Yes. See where it comes in? I thought she was Puerto Rican. No, let me stop. No, that's terribly racist. No, but see, we cannot just rely on the phenotype. You don't know who you talk to. Matter of fact, some of you have got family at home look just like her. Now you know that, okay? But anyway, next. Brother Will.
I am Puerto Rican. So yeah, this was a really big cultural experience to me. I've never been to Cuba. I've heard what Ben had told me, and always wanted to go. When he had told me about the biennial, I was 100% yes, but I wanted to bring an artwork that was fresh and new and spoke to where I was going. I didn't want to bring something that I had before. So I know Cuba's very spiritual, a lot of, you know, a big history of Catholicism and African religions merging. So I grew up in the Catholic Church, and that became part of my just way of viewing the world. And you know, I'm not a church person at all. But you know, I'm a spiritual person, and that stuff kind of has come through me. So the pieces that I worked on was a triptych. It was mind, body, and Holy Spirit, kind of harking back to the you know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, mind, body, and soul, a merge of the two. So in that, I had taken these 3 works, and my work is an example here. It's abstract, but it's made with, you know, it's made quickly at first. It's made with gestural lines. It's made with quick color, and then I go in and you know, in regards to spirituality, I allow my creativity to see things and pull things out, make things in building worlds, and within these worlds is something that your imagination can play with. I'm really not. I'm just basically setting a stage for you to, for your imagination to work, and it's like a collaboration between your imagination and my color. So that's kind of the way I create work. And in going to Cuba, it was great to see my work appreciated in a way that wasn't monetary. It wasn't a money thing, like, oh, look, that piece is $10,000, it's great. It was, this piece is in a wonderful space and appreciated. And that was a brand new way of thinking, where art is appreciated for what it is and not the value, or I should say the monetary value. It was more of a value of, like an intrinsic value, something that you get and it makes you grow. And that was prevalent everywhere in Cuba. If you were good at something, you could study it. If there was a skill that you had and you could practice it to its completion, like they were saying, you can become a doctor for free if you're really good at it. If you're good at it and you want to study, you can continue. On the other hand, you know, everybody needs to make a living. So you see these teachers and doctors doing everyday things like driving cabs and things like that, because that that makes them more money. And this leads to great conversations. Everybody you spoke to was educated. Everybody had something to say. Everybody had a stance, whether it was you were with it or without it, they were able to express themselves. And so it's lends the question, you know, it's education to being poor or being in a rich country and being uneducated. You know, we got to find a happy balance somewhere. You know, so that it was a great experience. It was great education. Everywhere you went was something new, and it was very friendly. And like I said, it was very poor, but I felt very safe everywhere I went. It was nobody really trying to kind of take advantage. So especially coming from this area, you're always kind of like on guard, just because that's the way it is. You know, you just know things. And when I was there, it kind of like shed. You know, that feeling kind of got shed, and it was just appreciation, and you felt that everywhere you went.
Okay, thank you, Brother Will. Okay, my name is Tony Thomas, and I was one of the organizers and curators for the exhibit. Ben had called me up and asked me to join him in helping to organize the whole event, the whole exhibit. And you know, we contacted artists and recontacted artists. There was a lot to do to pull it all together, especially when you're dealing with a country like Cuba that doesn't have the technology. You know, we would send in emails and they would bounce, and then, you know, they would ask for one thing one day and the next day they needed something else. So it was a continuum of communication, and also helping the artists to understand that you're not dealing with the United States. You're dealing with another country that has to deal with our embargoes and other limitations, and that we have to be patient, and we may have to be redundant, but that at the end, you know, we're going to have a spectacular event. It's extremely professional, you know, and the quality of art, the experience is going to be par none, which it was. It seemed like it was for everyone that participated. The theme of the exhibit was shared horizons, and that we all are of different stages, but there is something that we all have in common with each other and with the world. The work that I exhibit was, I'm a visual artist, and like Orlando, I'm a retired teacher. And Ben caught me at the right time because I had just retired in September 30th. And it was funny because I went to work September 1 and everybody said, oh, I thought you retired. I said, the state wouldn't let me retire. They made me do another month. But basically they had already hired a teacher, so I got the chance to just sit and do nothing, you know. But it helped me to help organize our materials, the things that we needed, and contacting artist and this and that. But my work for the exhibit is different from what I'm showing here. But I'm a visual artist, I'm a painter, but I sew and I do quilting and I write stories. So I was definitely influenced by Faith Ringo's work with her story quilts, you know. And also Faith Ringo was an abstract artist, she was a painter, you know, and she did a range of things. In my piece, I used hair and and I created a piece that actually related to the dress, the slip that's hanging there. So I repurposed the piece because I did an installation with that dress, and the piece that I used for the exhibit, I repurposed it for a piece that I did called Till Emmett Comes Home, and it's related to Emmett Till. And a series of things that I put on a cloth, and then I started to add the hair, locks of hair, because you know when somebody dies, you know your hair doesn't disintegrate like everything. So I had all these locks of hairs and hands embracing those, symbolically bracing the hair for somebody that was lost, you know. And it not only just related to Emmett Till, but to a lot of young men and young women whose lives have been lost, and most times carelessly. You know, that we lose them, that we hope, but we still hold in place for them, you know, in our hearts, that they will come home. So I brought these pieces because they all relate, because this piece, like I said, this was in an installation, so the piece that I did for the show, this was, when I originally did the piece on the quilt was the piece that was originally, I sewed it to the slip. But then I decided to turn the slip into art, you know, so I wrote directly on the slip. It's an antique slip, I don't even know, I was called to buy it, and I had it, you know, and then I said, well, let me just I'm not gonna wear it, and, you know, I'm not gonna use it. So I devoted it to become a piece of art. And it also tells a story, like Emmett Till's story, very similar, but it's a story of Sojourner Truth, when she was known as Isabella, and that she had this love, and she wasn't able to be with this man because they were on different plantations. So this is the pieces I'm sharing with you today. Now, in regard to I want to share with you about Cuba. Everybody's talking about Cuba and the culture and the people. And I think the most significant thing that I got from this trip was the relationship of people. That we are led to believe that the Cuban people hate us. We're led to believe that the people in Gaza hate us. We're led to believe all of this. But what we have to understand, and we have to read between the lines, our governments want us to believe that these people are against us. But they're not. These people love us. They love our culture. You don't know, one of my best conversations I had was on my way to the airport when I was leaving, going to the Havana airport. And the taxi driver, we had a wonderful conversation where he was telling me, you know, I love American culture, I love American people. You know, I understand what's happening with the government in America that tries to turn your people against us. But we know that. They know the manipulation. We ourselves do not understand that. You know, a people should be able to decide whether they want to be democratic, socialist, communist, whatever. They have a right to choose, make that choice. We're forced to be capitalists and so-called democratic. But that does not have nothing to do with you being able to have a relationship with another person, human to human. And that's the most significant thing. People love, they have nothing against you. So you can go to Cuba and you will feel embraced. You know, you'll be exposed to culture and art, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So you have to read between the lines and go find out for yourself. that this beautiful island is here, you know, and from one end to the next. It's just culture, you know, and imagine what our lives were like when we were growing up. We didn't have anything, but look at what we gave to the world. Jazz, blues, gospel, you know, all of the art forms. Alvin Ailey, you know, that culture rises up. And it's one country that I've gone to where you can, even little kids are there looking at artists. You had a picture of Mendive, the artist, he was wearing white. Mendive is like a rock star there. He would have big parades and people would come from all over, travel long distances just to see him, to see his art and to see his performances. And everyone embraces their heritage. And the Yoruban tradition is very strong there. You know, and people also include that, even in the artwork. I was in Santiago de Cuba and they had just done a mural outside preschool. And then they had a symbol of one of the Yoruban gods. And I said, why is, you know, I questioned. She said, well, it's just there for protection. You know, and the people, they're all shades. You don't have to be, you know, dark African to embrace Yoruba traditions. They all do. They all include it. They infuse it in different ways. But it's such an embrace of all cultures and their work. So I just wanted to share that with you, that regardless of what your government says, your government is doing business of government, businesses of corporations or whatever. But people are people. And there's nothing, why would someone have something against you? They don't know you, but they know your culture and they respect and appreciate your culture. So you should also be open to respect and appreciate theirs and connect with them human to human.
Thank you, Tony. When you spoke of the Yoruban spiritual tradition, Will spoke of African spiritual systems and religions. Certainly Yoruba is prevalent on the island. There are other forms similar to it that are African-based, like Lukume, like Abakwa, and there are probably more. But in Cuba in particular, because these same spiritual systems exist in some of the other Spanish-speaking countries, but says, I didn't see it that heavily in Puerto Rico. Not saying it wasn't there, but it wasn't embraced, it wasn't as visible. In Cuba, well, you might not know what you've seen, but it was very visible, you know. So just want to bring it. Any questions, because we still have some, our folks on Zoom. Any questions for them? Any comments? Come on, folks, wake up. I always put these people to sleep, I'm so sorry.
Charles, when was the actual trip? When were you guys there?
We were there in November.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it started
at the start of the Biennale. So the Biennale goes for 4 months. So it started November 15th and it will end February 28th.
When you create on a personal level, what inspires you to create what you create?
Well,
Anybody?
Anybody.
The three of you.
So, I mean, for me, everything inspires me. People, the nature, conversations, music, everything. It's like I pick things in the air and then I go home and just try to put that in the visual place.
I like what Tony said at the end, it's a human thing, so it's more than just a particular thing.
Well, and that's a good point because I'm an abstract artist by nature. I love abstraction and I can do it all day and night long. But because things affect me, that I have to want to portray messages. So there's a need for representation, for images to show up in my work. So I changed my style so that I could address those issues. So I do more representation than I do abstraction. For that simple reason of speaking out on issues.
I have a cycle that I use because I do people and I do landscapes and I do men, I do women, I do all races. And I just kind of put it on a cycle so you don't get rusty in one area, you don't neglect another area. And, so many things to paint.
Yes.
This is Brother Noy, a local artist. He was with me last year when we did the Black History Month presentation. And I think in our conversation, he got a little confused. Because I explained to him that it's only the Cuban artist. It's not. No offense, but I can only juggle for so many things.
Your artwork over there, what made you pick those colors?
It started out with the light green in the background, and then I kind of just went, and purple and yellow always go together. For me, I think I might have put purple down first, and then put the gold in. And I didn't want to put too many different colors.
Is that acrylic or?
That's all oil. That's oil on gesso paper. And I like purple, light colors, like purple and blues. I didn't want to put too many colors into it. I just kind of liked the way it looked at the moment, and I figured if I was to introduce any other colors, it would change it. So I just left it as is.
And it's three-dimensional kind of, and it has a deep texture and like a glow, like a glow. So I seen when you were talking about the Trinity, right? It has like depth to it.
Yeah, there's always like some kind of I try to kind of like bring you in there and keep you there. Like these paintings take a while, so I want people to look at them for a little while. Not just something quick and then keep moving. But I like to just engage, and something that you can grow with, something that you could always return to and see new things. As your experiences grow, the work changes.
Do you guys do any other mediums besides painting?
I'm a painter. I also draw. I have sculpted. I use wood. I made the frames in Cuba. I just enjoy painting a lot, and that's
I'm
what
a
I do.
photographer too.
And I do fiber art as well.
Did you actually print the writing?
I wrote that, yes, and then the fabric on the quilt there, I painted that fabric and the sewing and the quilting.
That background reminds me of a piece that was in Cuba.
Yeah, it's similar, yeah.
Right, similar, right.
Because from here, it looks like actual fabric.
It is actual,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
yeah.
I think the exhibit in Cuba was a good mix of different types of visual art. We didn't have, as I remember, at our exhibit in Casa de Africa, the only thing we didn't have is sculpture.
So
What's some sculpture?
the one.
Oh, yes, Adrian's piece, yeah, it was sculpture, yeah, that one, yes.
Hers was sculpture?
And then they, yeah.
Pardon me.
Fabric.
Yes.
See?
With sculpture, yeah.
Yeah, but.
That's a sculpture.
I'm sorry.
Well,
They have
yes.
any digital art?
Yeah, they were.
Yes. They have some media.
Yeah, it was sculpture, three-dimensional. She had a glass book.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And when
We
they
have the
shaped
artists,
like
I'm sorry.
clothes.
They were not, well, they were their dresses.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Sure,
sure.
their dresses or pages.
Okay, so I take back what I said.
Oh.
I had it all.
Can I say something?
Yes, yes.
Well,
please.
Orlando's piece was sculptural
Please.
too.
Oh, right, that's true.
Something that I wanted to say that impressed me so much about Cuba. At the biennial, you could see everything that you see in New York, Paris, Spain, wherever. But you'll see a lot of other stuff that you don't see in New York because you see artists from the Middle East, you see artists from Africa, you see artists from Asia, you see artists from all over Latin America. And look at our country, We're a rich country, and the New York City could never put on 150 shows of artists from all around the world. And look at this small, poor country can do this. Now, what does it tell us? What does it tell us is that this country does not invest in culture for the people the way Cuba does. You know, or matter of fact, if you go to Europe, you'll see, you know, so this is the importance of traveling. You have to go, I say to people, go see Cuba for yourself, because and I don't use the word embargo, I do use the word blockade. They are blockading that country, because in this country you will never get free health care for everybody, free education for everybody, culture. The young people can go to any institution and just show their school identification card and enter without paying money. We can't do that here. So how does that affect working class people, poor people, especially? Because who needs culture more? Rich people or working class and poor people? You know, so this is why I say that country is so amazing. And I don't know how many of you, I know some of you there know the artist, great artist, singer, Nina Simone. And I say Cuba is like Nina Simone. There's the good and the bad, but the good way outnumbers the bad. You know, so I hope those of you who are attending tonight that make it your business to go to Cuba, because most people in this country think you can't go to Cuba. Now, why is that? Not because this country isn't saying you can't go, but they don't say you can go. And what's the reason for that? You know, the other thing is Cuba has a large black population. You talk to the young people, you say, I'm studying to be a doctor, I'm studying to be an engineer, I'm studying to be a scientist, I'm studying to be a musician, dancer, all these things of substance. It's not a culture where it's just based on the material things you got. So just like Will was saying that they looked at art for art. If you had good ideas, they're interested. From the person that sweeps the street, to the person that runs a hospital, an office, a museum, ever. People have a level of culture that you don't find here. People here, and generally, I'm saying the common people, their level of culture, the level of material things are pretty decent in comparison to Cuba. But the level of culture is much lower than it is the people in Cuba. You have to go and see for yourself. So it's amazing things. We met artists from Iraq, artists from India, artists from China, artists from, you know, this is the experience. It's again, it teaches me all the time what a country values. That's what they put their money into. Here they put it into the wars, and you see this present government really trying to wipe us out. I'm talking about especially people of color and migrants, to try to wipe them off the map. Whereas the head of the Casa de Africa, where we have the exhibit, he's a white man. Guess what he says? He says we're all African, because that's where it started, cradle of civilization. So that country, to me, it's poor, but it's far ahead of this country in terms of culture and internationalism.
Ben, to your point, did you notice, because you've made so many trips, you've probably been there every year, a couple of times, when did you first see an elementary class in-house in Casa de Africa?
No, that's been there for many years. Many years.
Oh, really?
As a matter of fact, I don't know if anybody said this to you. Okay. Listen to this. The young people, when you look at elementary school students who are studying art, their art looks like they're in high school. You look at high school students who are studying art in Cuba, it looks like they're in college. Yeah. You look at college students' artwork, they look like they're professional artists. Why? training. They don't have the material things that we have, but they'll find a way. They're so resilient, they'll find a way to get it. You know, so again, the substance is there as opposed to the outside surface, what you have on, or your hairstyle, and the material that you have. They don't have that, but they have the real stuff.
Okay, yeah, I that was the first time I had seen it, and I went to another, I don't know if it was so much a museum, but it was on the Plaza Viejo. There was a place, they had an exhibit set up. They too had about the same age group. I don't know if they were fourth graders, but they looked about the same. And they were in the back of the museum. So it was new to me, but I know you would know. That's why I asked you. All right, any other questions? Go ahead. Yes.
I just want to say it's good to see from the other end from artists. Last time I was in Cuba was 5 years before the pandemic. I went down with Pastors for Peace, People to People, because I'm an EMS worker. We took medical people down there, and it was a great experience. We didn't get much of the cultures I'm getting here now, but we was down there around May Day, and it's a beautiful place. And I say that as, that how important Cuba is to the liberation of black people throughout the world, going back to South Africa, everything else, and the culture all come together. But I think it's good to see the culture end of it. Like I said, I was doing it from the medical point of view and from the people to people thing. Thank you again.
Let me remind you of one thing. These packets that I give you, some of you are familiar with. I always give out what I call a fact pack, but it's just 2 pages. Actually, it's 4 sheets. You got your little invite on the front. But on the back, we have a little history of the biennale, of the biennial. Look it over. Also, underneath these 2 articles is the site where you can read the whole thing. I don't want to bore you. Plus, I've run out of paper. So that's why I did that. Also, of course, is the title sheet here for you to read, in case you didn't read it here. And lastly, we have the artists' websites you can visit, see more of their art, communicate with them, as well as we have other sites for reference about the biennial, about Cuba and Casa de Africa as well. Wilfredo Lam, who is probably one of the most famous Afro-Cuban artists, Afro-China Cuban artists. I say that because his mother, I believe, was of African descent or a mixture thereof. His father was Chinese, hence Lam, L-A-M is the way he spelled his name. But anyway, the Wilfredo Lam Center, which I believe began in 1883 and has still, since 1984 or 85, you'll read it in there, has been responsible for organizing these biennials. And in their mission, it was to focus on Latin American and Caribbean artists, as well as they expanded it to, as you heard Ben say, Africa, Asia, okay? They had some European artists, as you saw, the German artist was there, he was there. He probably wasn't the only one, but they have focused more on the so-called global south, third world, okay? Why? Well, we don't always get that perspective. Go ahead, Ben. You gonna say something, Ben?
No. I'm listening to you say everything that you can say. Very good.
Okay. All right, so I don't know. Oh, he's got it. How long is it?
It's still under 2 minutes. I have to upload it though.
Yeah. Can
A video? Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes. It's 7:23. We'll probably close out with Will's video. It has a short video. You may see some things that I didn't include in mine. While he's doing that, one of the things that I think, for me, this is a symbol, and its interpretation, which is Sankofa, going and fetching it. Well, this is actually what we did. That's why I said the return of the diaspora. We are all part of the African diaspora, okay? Where do we return to? Not our original homes, no. But in spirit, we're pretty much Cuban. You know, as well as being what we obviously are. And I think it's always important to investigate and learn as much as you can of the history, so you can have a better perspective in the present. You can compare the two, and thus, if you understand those two, well, the future should be pretty much sealed intelligently for you. So that's all I wanted to say on that. If we will, yes.
I have a question.
Go. Yes, ma'am.
A question for all the artists and women. How could what you brought back and what you actually did to the world, how can the average person support it? Because I grew up kind of in a similar culture. I grew up in Asbury Park in the 90s, and we were, the surrounding areas, we were all something, right? If you weren't a poet, I'm a poet, right? Then you were a dancer or you were an artist. And we had ciphers and we sat around and talked about books and art and theory and the Bible and religion. And all of those things were just the average everyday kind of thing, right? How can you support that? Because I kind of think we need a resurgence of that in today, in the now, because I'm like 40 something. So how do we, because I see that our kids and our youth don't have it. And I kind of want to bring it back, so how can we support it? What do you do?
Well, I have a nonprofit, it's called Arts Etc. I have some business cards, I can put them out. And I started a women's art collective, which now it's open to all artists. But we meet once a month and we talk about our work in progress. So, finding a community that, you can connect with is one way to support artists. Also, to go to their websites and see their work, or get on their mailing list, because they will share, their exhibits where they're showing their work and things like that. Yeah. I mean, we all have emails. Yeah, we all
I
collect.
also have a nonprofit organization that help kids in Cape Verde Islands. So we send like school materials, art, sometimes music stuff we send to them. And it calls Miguel Vicente Monteiro. And that's one thing I do on the side too, to try to keep the kids involved and engaged, and also provide some material for them to be able to succeed too. In terms of arts here, I mean, it's just supporting, liking your stuff, sharing, talk about what we do. That's important, we feel good about, and people know what stories we are telling.
Yes. I think that you might have wanted to mention, Tony, is that Tony is going to be organizing an exhibition of women artists from here to exhibit at Casa de Africa in Havana. So one of the things that we try to do is encourage people to do things with Cuba, despite Trump putting this blockade on Cuba, even after Biden took it off, because Cuba should have never been on a terrorist list. What could it do to this country? Nothing. So we try to encourage people you're a writer, you're a visual artist, you're a musician. Cuba has festivals all year long. They have book fair, this book fair that they have in December. Imagine going to a book fair here. You go to a book fair here, they have like hundreds and hundreds of publishing companies from all around the world, writers from all around the world, and they go to the book fair. But the thing that impressed me so much, you should see, because a lot of people here don't know that Cuba has a large black population too. Go to the book fair, you see the whole black families attending the book fair. The level of culture of the common people there is so much higher than here. They have music festivals, dance festivals, film festivals, all kinds of festivals all year long. So You can go to anything, go to something that in your area, in your taste.
Reasons for you to come.
All right, we have 2 or 3 minutes. One last thing, and then we're gonna close it out because we gotta get these folks at the library, allow them to go home on time, and I'm gonna bring this down. So this is
And so I hope, you know, each one of us has something. So if you want to give us your email, we can put you on our mailing list. Some people do newsletters and things like that. So it's a way to stay in contact.
I did everybody, so I'll see
That's been, yeah, it's all written.
Maybe want to erase Black history, but you're erasing a big part of American history.
Pero que ven esta cantidad de artistas reflejando la obra de África, la obra de la humanidad en la parte de África.
Well, we have to, in terms of clustering cultural pictures is almost important. So that's why I'm present here, not only to get to know you better, to salute you, but also to encourage you to continue providing spaces for engagement between Cuba and the United States, especially in the area of arts and culture.
Bajo este proyecto de un sueño de religión, en yo, es una persona que viene a hace muchos años, que tiene este sueño, ya hemos hecho muchas actividades en conjunto, pero que tiene esta cantidad de artistas.
We're trying to erase Black history and American history. Black history and American is a part of American history, including the African history. You see why you have to touch here for yourself? It's a good evidence.
No, it's good.
Well, folks, we got like 2 minutes and we gotta get out of here. Gentlemen, you have anything, last words to say? Musa, Orlando, or Hassan, or Ben?
Just thank you very much for organizing this, and it was so good to see everybody here today. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Charles.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Although we wish we could have seen you, but it's okay. I'm glad you participated. You made it so much richer than I could have. Thank you.
I hope to be in the States in May. So.
All right. So we'll see you in the flesh.
Great, can't wait.
All right, thank you all. Close it out. Thank you for coming out. See you again. Peace and blessings.
Take care.